We're back from our latest trip to Bermuda.
And that's what we're talking about today on the Sonic Boomers podcast.
I'm Pete Torriello.
And I'm Maureen Torriello.
And we're back from our cruise to Bermuda, which took place on July 14th for a week, on board the Celebrity Eclipse out of Bayonne.
And we are here to talk about it.
Yep, our first cruise on board the Eclipse, by the way.
It was.
New experience on a slightly older ship.
And slightly larger.
So let's talk about, square one.
Square one.
Is arriving at Bayonne Cruise Terminal. We took a cruise last June out of Bayonne, same cruise to Bermuda. And believe me when I tell you, from the time that we parked the car to the time that Maureen, her mobility scooter, and I were on board the ship was 10 minutes.
Exactly.
It was an exercise in
precision.
On this cruise,
no.
No.
With respect to Celebrity, they experienced computer breakdown.
As we used to say in radio, due to technical circumstances beyond our control.
Exactly. And it had nothing to do with that big Microsoft thing.
No.
It had nothing to do with that. It was strictly a Celebrity problem that day at the port. What happened was they start boarding passengers around 10:30, and before, by 10:30, quarter to 11, they were already offline. So they got a few people on, and then it all stopped.
Nobody getting on.
Our time was supposed to be 12 noon. We got there about 11:30, figuring if we got there early, maybe we'd get lucky and get on a little bit earlier. Well, we pulled up, and it was a sea of humanity.
Yeah.
I would say hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating, of people outside the terminal in some semblance of a line, but not really, just people looking perplexed. And
if you've ever been to the Bayonne Cruise Terminal, the line obviously started inside the terminal, went out the door, down the sidewalk, out to the parking garage, and down.
At one point, and this is unconfirmed, they said that the line was a quarter of a mile. Again, comparing to last year's experience, last year you arrived at the port and it was very organized, and there was a guy directing you, and he saw that we have the handicap placard, and he signaled us to a spot right at the curb. They came over, they took our bags out of the car. We didn't even have to lift a finger. Pete was ready to take my scooter out. The guy helped Pete get the scooter out, even helped him assemble it.
Yeah.
And Pete was on his way to the parking garage, and the guy's like, "Don't worry, I'll stay here with your wife." I didn't need it, but it was very nice of him to do that. And sure enough, Pete's back in about 5 minutes from the parking garage. We go into the terminal, zip, zip, zip.
No line.
Zip, 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 onto the ship.
Clockwork, baby.
This time, they directed us to a space, but it was not curbside.
It was out in the parking lot somewhere.
It was like across, there was like a parking area.
Yeah. But it wasn't the spot that they normally would direct you to.
No. And the guy comes over and he takes the luggage, but we already had gotten it pretty much out of the car. And he grabbed the luggage and put it on the carrier, and off he went. Nothing with the scooter. So Pete had to get the scooter out by himself, which he does anyway. It wasn't the best customer service. Got the scooter together, and now, again, because we were not curbside, I had to transgress like a roadway kind of on the scooter to cross to get over to the curb where the actual terminal was, and cars are coming. It was a little bit hectic. So I get over there, and Pete now has gone with the car to the parking garage, and all I see are all these people, like hundreds of people, and I didn't want to tick somebody off by cutting the line or anything and being rude. I wasn't about that. But I just didn't know where to go because there was nobody there directing you. So finally I found one of the porters and I said, where do I go? I've got the scooter. How do I do this? And he's like, oh, come on, I'll let you right in. And I was like, well, my husband's parking the car. He said, well, when your husband comes, come get me and we'll take care of you. So luckily, I was never more happy to be handicapped in my life because they let you go to the front of the line.
I even started walking with a limp myself.
They let me go to the front of the line,
that
so that was nice. Now, it was a beastly hot day.
Yeah.
It was in the 90s, and people were dropping like flies outside because it was so hot and so uncomfortable outside. The terminal was air conditioned, so it was a blessing. He let us right in. We got into the air conditioning, and once you're in there, you almost don't care.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of people who were like me, either on a scooter or going to be getting a scooter when they got to their room and needing wheelchair assistance. And these people could not stand for long periods of time, and yet they were standing.
Yeah.
And that wasn't good at all.
No, because the gentleman behind us had asked you if he could hold on to the back of your scooter just to steady himself.
Exactly. And I was like, okay. I said, but just be warned if I have to move the scooter.
And then I was, watch it with the hands, buddy. Let's not get too handy here, okay?
No.
No.
Eventually, we did get on the ship, and everything was hunky-dory.
It was, and it was a happy cruise.
It was.
In spite of the tough start, everybody, from at least what our experience was, seemed to take it in stride. And, I think people were happy to just be starting their vacation and after a few rough years and happy to be out on the water again.
Exactly. And this time around, and apparently this has been done before, on Facebook they had a Facebook group dedicated to people sailing on the July 14th from the Eclipse from Bayonne. And prior to that, like at least a month or more ahead of time, people were yakking and talking and, oh, where are you going? What excursions are you doing? Let's meet up. Let's do this. So it had more of a community sense to it.
It did. Everybody was friendly, chatting each other up, engaging in pleasant little conversations. And what I really appreciated was there wasn't any political crap going on. You didn't see any hats, any T-shirts, and I'm talking either candidate. And everybody seemed to be content to leave the politics on the pier.
Exactly.
And I think it made for a very pleasant cruise.
It did. Now, as far as what do you want to say, like our accommodations next? When we booked the cruise, we asked for handicap accommodations because the scooter, they will not let you leave it out in the hallway. So the scooter has to fit in the room. And we found that you really kind of need the handicap room because there's not enough room in the standard size room.
Plus, I think the door is a little wider too, isn't it, to the room?
I don't think it was any wider.
And
but
we
I
had
think
an electrically operated door too, so that you can roll your scooter up to the door and hit this button on the wall, and the door would open for you and then close behind you.
Right, so that was kind of neat.
Nice touch.
It was. So and the room itself was extra large, which was nice. It was still a veranda room with a balcony. And my chief complaint was that it was blah. It was a nice room. It was clean. It was operative.
It was clean except for the curtain.
Right. The curtain had a little bit of
Mold.
Like mildew or something on it. We probably should have said something, but we didn't. And
we're not ones to be ball breakers.
No, and I just felt like it was like a cheap hotel. That the artwork was kind of blah, and the colors were blah. It was a comfortable room for the week to stay in, but I wouldn't, like, sometimes you go in and you look and like, oh, this was not an moment.
Now we also had to pay extra for an upgrade to Aqua Class because I think Select is like the entry level class. I think they call it Celebrity Select, and all of the handicapped accessible rooms were spoken for. So when we were booking the cruise, the Celebrity representative said, you're going to have to upgrade to Aqua Class because that's where we have a few rooms left. So we did. Now, Aqua Class gets you a few extra perks, but not much. You had water. You had 2 bottles of water brought to your room every day. and you had a free wine tasting. There was a captain's reception, which we missed because we were stuck in the terminal with the computers broken down, because that was an 11 a.m. thing. And actually, we weren't even supposed to be there till noon.
Right.
So we missed that. You got a free tour of backstage at the theater. You had access to Blue, a little more elevated dining experience.
And there were also some spa
things
included, which we don't like,
do.
Free yoga mat, things like that, which we don't do. I don't do yoga. If I could get myself twisted into yoga positions, I wouldn't need the mobility scooter. I wouldn't necessarily pay extra for Aqua Class, but we kind of had to.
We kind of had to. We had no shipboard credit, onboard credit. We cruised last June, same cruise company, and we had like $200 worth of shipboard credit, which basically paid our
drink bill.
And this one we got no ship credit.
No.
Which, come on. I had to pay extra for the room.
Right.
And you don't give me any ship credit? Like, maybe next time we cruise, we'll go through a travel agent because they have access to the good stuff.
And maybe it was shame on us. We just assumed that there would be.
Yeah.
And we didn't ask for it or ask about it. So maybe it's shame on us too.
So let's talk about the restaurant, because I know people are going to be saying, gee, I've heard of Blue. I know it's Aqua Class. It's kind of a more upscale dining experience. Right. How did you like it?
I liked the venue. It was nice and quiet and tastefully done. Smaller, intimate, nice view, all windows at the side, looking out at the ocean. The chairs, as they say, were fluffy friendly. And the tables were set a little bit further apart so you weren't right up against each other, and there's room to maneuver with the scooter. All those are plus. Check.
We had a wonderful hostess.
She was terrific.
Marla.
She loved the scooter, and she came running over. I'll take your scooter.
And what about the food?
Now the food is where it kind of falls apart.
Kind of goes off the rail a little bit.
And caveat is like Pete and I are not particularly adventurous eaters. We're not foodies. We're not gourmet. If you are, you will love Blue, but we're not.
Yeah.
And the choices on some of the nights were slim pickings for us. Like they would have things like duck or pheasant or, some vegetarian mushroom thing or a couscous.
Yeah, what I call frou-frou offering.
Matter of fact, the one night we looked and there wasn't a single thing on the menu that we would eat.
Yeah, that was the one night that we ate in the main dining room. I think they want you to call it the main restaurant or something now. That's the new terminology.
Whatever. We went there the one night just to try that out to see if we liked it as much or better than Blue, and we didn't. The main dining room is a lot bigger, a lot more crowded. Tables are
less fluffy, friendly.
The tables are much closer together, so if you're trying to maneuver the scooter or you're trying to get in and out of the seat, it wasn't a good experience.
No.
So we only ate there the one night. But Blue, overall, it was good, but the food choices are where we felt it was lacking.
I thought I made one mistake at Blue, and I thought I was going to be adventurous, and as an appetizer one evening, they had quail. And curiosity struck me, and I said, let me have the quail. Well, famous last words, let me have the quail. Maureen and I are bird lovers. We have bird feeders here in our home. We take care of the birds. And unlike if you are getting turkey, they'll carve the turkey for you and you get a nice plate of white meat or dark meat, whatever you like. Or if you have chicken, you might have a wing or a drumstick or something, or again, some carved meat. When you have quail, they bring you out a dead bird, sans feathers, and cooked. But the bird is...
It looks like the bird. It's no mistaking what it is.
No mistaking. It's a little bird. And I saw this thing, and I was like, oh, no.
I thought Pete was going to cry.
It looked like, a poor little bird with rigor mortis, cooked on the plate. And I just put the napkin over it, and I said, I'm not eating this.
Yeah.
I was so upset. That's what I get for being adventurous.
Yeah.
So that was our food experience.
Now, activity-wise, we haven't talked about this.
Yes.
The activities on board, on paper, it looks like there's a lot going on. But the reality is there are huge stretches of time when there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
But
at least they had more trivia than last year.
I think it's about the same.
Really? I thought they had more.
No. But I retained my trivia champ status. I won one by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Then Pete and I were a team on another one, and we won first place as a team.
Right.
And there was another trivia we did, and we won second place as a team. So go us.
Go us. But really crappy on the prizes.
There was no prize.
We had one prize that we won.
I was going to say
that thing that you put on the back of your cell phone.
Yeah, we didn't even know what it was.
We didn't even know what it was.
It looked like a little sticker.
And it was a little thing that pops open, and you attach it to the back of your cell phone, and you like hold it between your fingers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, we don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
At least on Carnival, you'd win a ship on a stick or something.
Yeah, solid gold plastic.
Which we have several for winning trivia contests on Carnival.
Yes, we are formidable.
Yeah.
But the trivia activities were fun, and they had some game shows which were fun.
I liked the true false game.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a lot of fun.
Right, and I can't remember.
They
had Pictionary.
Pictionary, although they had to use a different name for legal
right.
purposes, but it was basically Pictionary.
Pictionary. They had
karaoke, of course.
Karaoke, yeah, and they had karaoke with a live band, which was a little bit different spin on it. They weren't going with the soundtrack.
Yeah,
they were playing with a live band. So I mean, there was decent things to do, and they did have a lot of like arts and crafty kind of things, but I didn't. I thought I would want to do them, but the time of day that they had them just didn't work out. We were eating breakfast or we were at lunch or something, and they were having that. And those were very limited. They only had seats for like about 30 people. So if you didn't get there early on, you weren't going to get into it anyway. We
met some interesting people.
We did.
On the ship.
We did.
There was a guy from Freehold, and we never got his name, but we used to just call him Freehold.
Yeah, we would see him.
And we ran into him a few times on the ship. He was a lot of fun to talk to, very formal,
Yeah.
And then there was a woman that we met. Her name was Jenny.
Yes.
And there was a really fascinating story that ties into Jenny.
Right. She was wheelchair bound, and her parents were with her and assisting her. And in talking with the family, it turns out that Jenny has 2 master's degrees, holds down a full-time job, and paid for the parents to go on this cruise.
Yeah.
So God bless her.
Yeah, she was fantastic. You meet some really interesting people on cruises that have like really amazing backstory. They really stand out in our memory. Freehold and Jenny.
Okay, and another part of people watching, or whatever you want to call it, the trivia. What do we call him?
The trivia know-it-all.
Yes, there's always one.
Or the guy that has to Google every. And by the way, that is a crappy thing to do, to bring a phone on and Google answers on the trivia.
Yeah.
You should be thrown off the ship. And there's always the one guy who will come up to the host and say,
"Hey, that's not the only way you could do this. It says here algebra is also a mathematical symbol. Yeah."
Yeah, that's right. They asked about what branch of mathematics used symbols.
Right.
And they had one answer.
Right.
And this guy gets up and he's like,
"Well, it says here that you can do it in trigonometry."
And I'm watching this guy, and I wanted to say, sit the hell down, Junior. Have a seat before somebody knocks you down. Like, I was so annoyed.
But we love trivia, and we play these games all the time on board. And there's always that same kind of person that shows up, and it's like
If I were the trivia host on the ship,
Yeah.
I would say right at the beginning, I don't care what Google says. Turn your phone off, first of all, okay? If you're playing my trivia, turn the phone off. No phones. If I see a phone, I'm going to call you out
You're
and embarrass you,
disqualified, yeah.
okay? And I don't care what Google says. What I have on the official Celebrity Cruise game thing, that's the answer.
Yeah.
I don't care what you say. This is the answer.
Right. That's right.
And that's it.
And like we said, there's no real prize. So why get so upset
Somebody
about it?
just
It's
has
ridiculous.
to be right. And then there was the woman in the theater. Remember the woman in the
Oh,
theater?
yes, yes.
She didn't like her seat.
Well, she was mad because they had a section roped off. There was a group that was traveling.
Coming to watch the show in the evening.
And they were like, they had roped off like a whole section for this group of like 30 or 40 people. And she came in and she wanted to sit where that group was allowed to be.
Yeah.
And she was not part of that group.
And she got really uppity.
And she starts with, well, I'm elite plus class. And I said to her, I said, well, you could sit in that same spot probably if you go down the deck. I have 125 cruises. I know where I want to sit.
Yeah. So I wanted to say to her, you are elite plus class and you have 125 cruises. So what that says to me is you have a lot of money, you're obnoxious, and you have too much time on your hands. And she didn't get her seat.
Well, eventually she did.
Did she?
Yeah, because as the time of the show approached, there were empty seats in that section, and they finally took the ropes down.
Squeaky wheel got the grease.
At the last moment, but she moved over.
Yeah, I thought she was a jerk.
Yeah. The actual shows in the theater, outstanding.
Yep.
Couldn't say enough good things about him. There was a guy from Australia and his wife that
Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
That were Hayden Smith and his wife.
Yeah.
There was another woman who was on Broadway, absolutely wonderful. The comedian, great. The production show at the end was like
Topper.
You just didn't even know where to look. It was like they said The Wizard of Oz meets Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Just all kinds of stuff going on, singing, dancing, acrobatics, all kinds of staging. Really, really an amazing show to see.
Probably the best shows we've ever seen on any of our cruises.
I would say so. The entertainment during the rest of the time in the lounges and poolside and all, not great. They were talented people, but they weren't particularly engaging. People didn't really get involved and start singing along or having a good time with them. They were just kind of blah.
Kind of there.
And so I kind of give them points off for that. So disembarkation.
Disembarkation. Again, last June when we cruised with Celebrity, it was clockwork. This year it was a crap show.
It was. And this time they couldn't blame it on the computer. All they did was they told you had to be out of your room at 7:30 in the morning. Okay. We complied. We were not doing the walk off with the luggage. We put the luggage out the night before. They take it to the terminal and it's there for you once you're off the boat. From 7:30 when you're out of your room, they had you assemble on deck 5. So anywhere on that whole deck. And you were given a number and they would call you by numbers to get off the boat.
Trouble was, they said we're not going to call the numbers on the public address system because people find it annoying.
And it was supposed to come up on your app.
And the app was not working for us.
And the app was not working. So we're sitting there, and finally it seemed like we should have been called by now. And I went to one of the workers, and he's like, "Oh, it's on the app." And I'm like, "Well, show me. It's not coming up."
We're not seeing it.
Well, he just kind of walked away. So eventually, somewhere along the line, we heard that they were up to number 22. Well, we were 19. We should have been off already, and we never heard. So we hightailed it when our number was up. Once that happened, once our number was called, we got off, and it was not that big of a deal.
Disembarkation was total confusion, no communication, people standing around not knowing where to go.
Points off.
They gotta work on that one.
Exactly.
Whatever you guys did last June, that's what
Do
you should have
that.
done.
Yeah.
Go back to that. So that was our experience on board Celebrity Cruises Eclipse to Bermuda. And of course, that does not sour us on Celebrity. We like Celebrity, but they've got a few things that need a drop of oil, you might say.
Yep.
And as far as if we cruise next year, well, you know what? We'll worry about that when next summer comes.
Exactly.
So we want to thank you for checking out this edition of the Sonic Boomers podcast. As always, Maureen and I would love, love, love it if you would give us a like and subscribe because A, it makes us feel good, and B, it also helps us to get better distribution on YouTube. So until our next show, I'm Pete Torriello.
And I'm Maureen Torriello.
Goodbye, God bless you. Thank you for watching and listening to the Sonic Boomers podcast.